couldn't go back. The only thing I could do was put my running suit on and get to work. And I love that about big, scary goals. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So do the thing that scares you instead of the thing that you already know that you can do.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 140 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited that you are listening to this. And actually, right now, if you are listening to this the day it comes out, Friday, September 6th, I will be really excited just in general today because as of this episode coming out, I am or will be in New York City doing a live show tomorrow, September 7th. If you haven't somehow signed up, go to tinamuir.com/NYC and you can sign up to come to the live show where I have Mev Keflezgi, Jenny Simpson, and Rachel Pratt. Be sure to sign up to that. I also do have a meetup, so if you haven't already emailed me, tina@tinamuir.com, go ahead and do that. On that note, I will be releasing this live show episode next Friday, but I will also be conducting some bonus interviews. I have lots of meetups with friends, people that I've interviewed over the years, people I've known over the years in New York. We'll be doing bonus interviews all over the place. So if you are not already supporting me on Patreon, go do it right now because you will be getting access to plenty of bonus episodes, and these are going to be real as they come. If you have already been a member of my Patreon supporting team, you will know that you get plenty of bonus interviews and they are very real. You heard Dean Karnazes share a massive secret and talk about being a nanny for my child. You heard a story from Nate Helming while we were sitting in his friend's apartment. There's all kinds of crazy things going on in there and there will be plenty more after today. So that's Patreon, patreon.com/running for real with the number 4. That's patreon.com/running for real with the number 4. Now, last week we had Bill Rogers on the show, who is a 4-time winner of Boston and the New York City Marathon, twice breaking the American record at Boston. We talked about his life, we talked about his struggles, how running has changed since he was at his peak in the 70s. He's a wonderful guy, and he made a fantastic offer that he would send signed copies to Running for Real listeners. If you missed that episode and how to do that, go back and check it out. Now, today, be ready for something a little bit different. I didn't interview my guest today. Well, we didn't speak on the phone or we didn't Skype. We didn't meet up in person. I didn't hear her answers until a few weeks later. What the heck am I talking about, you ask? Well, my podcast guest today is Susan Lacke. You may remember Susan from episode 60, and I'm excited today to bring her back on. I just read her new book, which I adored, and it is all about getting outside your comfort zone and taking on new challenges. You know, like running a 5K naked or running up the Empire State Building steps. I breezed through this book in 2 days because it was just so good and addictive, and Susan is funny. I just have to credit her with part of my changed attitude towards running. I'd been feeling like I had to get back out into the road running scene to prove myself postpartum. But why does it have to be on the road when there's so many other fun things to do? And Susan was a big part of the reason I decided to run on the Dipsea Trail during my trip in San Francisco, and I really want to thank her for that. Anyway, that's enough about me. About this episode, as you may remember from episode 60 with Susan, I have to send the questions to Susan and her PR rep, and they go to a studio together, record them, and Cara, the PR rep, will read out the questions. So I just recorded over Cara's voice, so it sounds like I'm recording with Susan. It's sneaky, and I want to give a big shout out to my editor, Jeremy, for once again putting this together. Can I just give him a big, massive high five in general for this episode? He is amazing at what he does every week, not just this episode, and such a good person too. So Jeremy, thank you. Thanks to Body Health, Turbo.me and MetPro for sponsoring this episode. With MetPro, you're going to hear Angelo Poli, the founder, answering one of your questions later in the show. So listen out for that. Let's hear from Body Health and then we'll get right to Susan. This episode is sponsored by Body Health, specifically Perfect Amino, which is my favorite recovery product that I've been using since I was an elite. But you know that because I tell you every week how much I love Body Health, and there's a reason I'm still working with them years later, because I trust in their product. I know it helps and I know they are there for me. And even though I'm not running at the level I was, they didn't leave me in the shadows for some faster, newer athlete. They stayed with me and continued to support me. And those of you who already take Perfect Amino every day, and there are a lot of you, tell me often how much better you feel, and it makes my heart so happy when you reach out to tell me just how much of a difference it's made in your training. Body Health was founded by Dr. David Minkoff, who, by the way, has a new book out, which is called The Search for the Perfect Protein. Dr. David is an MD who founded Body Health in 2000, and his practice concentrates on alternative and complementary approaches to health. Body Health has a whole host of products to help give your body a boost, and especially if your body is working through something stressful like an injury, surgery, overcoming surgery, I should say, sickness, pregnancy, or anything else. That means it's working hard. Body Health products are going to be there to support you. Body Health contains all 8 essential amino acids we need. So if you're pretty bad at taking your protein like I am, this will help you pick up some of the slack. I like taking 5 tablets per day of Perfect Amino, knowing it gives me the equivalent of 18 grams of protein, quick and easy. You can get 10% off the entire Body Health site by visiting tinamuir.com/aminos. That's TINAMUIR.com/aminos. Susan, this is definitely not in the typical way I record podcasts, but I absolutely loved that we can do this. I enjoyed it last time around, and I'm going to start asking Susan these questions. As you know, she is not in the room with me, but we are going to act as if she is. She got the questions from me written out in my own words. I'm going to read them exactly as I wrote them to you. She's going to answer them, and we're going to go from there. All right. So, I absolutely loved your book, Running Outside the Comfort Zone, and I have a feeling many of the superstars in my audience will want to add those races to their list after reading it. I certainly have, and that's no joke. I really have added a lot of the things she talked about in this book. For the listeners who have not read it yet, tell us what this book is about in your own words, and how did it come about?
My new book, Running Outside the Comfort Zone, is all about a year that I took where I explored the wild, wacky, crazy, fun side of running. So I took a year where I didn't commit to a single traditional marathon or 5K. Instead, what I did was I signed up for races that are not typically considered to be so-called real running experiences. So instead of racing a traditional marathon, I ran up the stairs of the Empire State Building. I ran across the Grand Canyon. I chased a wheel of cheese down a hill in England and sprinted through a 5K without any clothes on in a naked 5K. It was a really cool experience to have this whole year of running adventures. But the reason I did it wasn't to have this fun year with a bunch of cool stories, although that's one of the things that came out of it, but instead it was because I was burned out from running. I didn't like running anymore. I had spent so much time kind of throwing myself against the brick wall, trying to get faster, trying to be skinnier, trying to qualify for Boston, trying to do all of these things that I thought real runners did. And it made me hate running. And so because I was so defeated by all of it, I just said, I'm going to go the complete opposite direction. I'm going to go do the things that real runners don't do. I'm going to do the things that I've been too busy to do because I've been training for Boston, or that I pushed aside as being flippant or weird or not worth my time. I did all of those things, and it ended up being the best year of my running life.
You talk about being a middle or even back of the pack runner a lot in the book. That this is something that I really struggle with not saying something, because I feel like runners who are in the middle and towards the back of the pack put themselves down time and time again. I saw this in the words I read in your book, Whereas before I just kind of noticed it through the words people used in their body language. By the end of the book, you realized that you were and always have been a real runner. You were just as much a runner as anyone else. What would be your advice for someone listening who is struggling to come to peace with being in the middle or the back of the pack?
It's tough when we compare ourselves to other runners, right? Where we look around and we say, well, obviously that person is faster than me. Obviously that person is skinnier than me. Obviously that person knows what they're doing. I'm none of those things. I know what that feels like. And I know how hard it can be to let those voices in your head tell you that you're not good enough. I battled that myself. And it was particularly hard when I really got into my own head and I thought, well, because I write about running, I should be better at this. Because this is my career, I should have it all figured out. I should know how to be faster. Why am I not faster? And I beat myself up for not being good enough. And when you do that, it's hard to get motivated to get out the door every day. So with this book, with this year of experiences, I met hundreds, if not thousands, of runners. And towards the end of the year, I realized that I had never met a fake runner. And that was a big revelation for me because maybe there is no such thing as a fake runner. Maybe we get so caught up in this idea of what running is and who real runners are that we never stop and take a look at ourselves and say, wait a second, I run. Therefore, I'm a runner. I'm a real runner. And that's what I encourage people to do, especially now after doing all of the adventures in running and encountering so many different runners, is to remember that you are a real runner. You are the person who's showing up, who's doing the thing, and that's pretty badass.
You used the analogy of not knowing the password for your feelings of not being good enough to be a real runner. And you talked about how special running is because it has nothing to do with your hearing or nothing to do with any other physical or mental variations between us. For listeners who do feel like they are different in their day-to-day lives but find running to be a place of solace, what would you like to say to them to embrace who they are, running or not?
I've always felt like an outsider, not just in running, but just in the world. I'm deaf, and the interesting thing about my disability is I'm too deaf to fit into the hearing world, and I'm not deaf enough to fit into the deaf world. And so I've always been in this kind of in-between place. Running had been such a wonderful thing for me because my ears have nothing to do with my legs, what I'm trying to accomplish as a runner. And so now I have this place where I belong. And I know that running can be that place for so many people where we maybe feel like we're out of place at our job, or maybe we're feeling like we are not fitting into our community, or we're just struggling in some way. And running can be this place where if you show up, you're surrounded by hundreds of your new best friends. And the only thing that you really have in common is running. And that's the only thing you really need to have in common. There's no judgment. There's no pretense. There's no qualification to be here with us in this community. If you run, you're a runner. Welcome. And that's so powerful. That's so profound. And I wanted to celebrate that in this book. I hope I did justice. I really do, because the running community has been so wonderful to me, so accepting to me. And so for those who are struggling to embrace that, just let us take care of you. Let us lift you up. Let us support you. And let us show you just how great you are.
When training for your BQ, your big goal before you began your year of adventures, you talked about how you would often put yourself and your running accomplishments down for not being good enough. I see this in runners all the time. It's almost a defense mechanism. Now you've been through this, what would be your advice for someone yearning to be the fit, fast runner everyone wants to be?
Something I hear all the time when I go to book events or, talk to other runners, and they say, oh, I'm not a real runner. I'm only doing a 5K. Or it's not a big deal. It's just a half marathon. And I always want to shake them and say, but you're doing a 5K, you're doing a half marathon. That's amazing. And when you look at these things that we say, the way that we try to discredit our accomplishments because they're not as amazing as, say, qualifying for Boston, that discredits the hard work that you put in as a runner. That discredits the fact that you show up every single day, you put in the miles. I think that's amazing. I think that's something that should be celebrated. So instead of saying, oh, it's just a 5K, I want you to start saying, I'm doing a 5K. I'm going to rock it. It's going to be amazing. Be a little bit cocky. Why not? Because you've earned it. You've put in the work. You deserve to show off just a little bit.
This podcast is sponsored by TurboTrack.me. TurboTrack.me is an amazing platform that offers live, streamed, and on-demand workout videos from a wide variety of professional instructors. Now, I've loved looking at it for the stretching, meditation, their strength training classes, and the instructors are highly qualified and you can interact with them after the class, which is pretty cool and makes you feel like you're involved in something, even if you can't go to a gym or you don't have a gym near you. It's wonderful. They also have this incredible tracking system within the app that integrates with several wearable heart rate devices, if that is something you enjoy. I know many of you are huge heart rate buffs, so this will definitely be for you. The app tracks heart rate, resting heart rate, calories, intensity, distance, heart rate zones, and recovery. Add that to the streaming aspect, and it's definitely worth the sign up. TurboTrack.me is offering us a free 90-day trial. That's 3 months. And if you continue beyond the 90 days, you'll receive a free forearm heart rate device. Now, all you need to do is go to TurboTrack.me and use the promo code TINA to get this special offer and stream those great classes. You can track what you do and you will absolutely love it. So once again, that's TINA is the promo code, and go to TurboTrack.me to go get your 3 months for free. You said there is something spectacular about setting a goal beyond your current abilities if it scares you into doing the work. Explain why that is the case and why runners should do something like this.
When I started this year of challenges for this book, I basically couldn't sleep one night. I opened my laptop, I started Googling races, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I said fuck it, and I signed up for every single one of them. I fell asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, I had that moment of, oh, what did I just do? But I was signed up for all of these races. I couldn't go back. The only thing I could do was put my running suit on and get to work. And I love that about big, scary goals. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So do the thing that scares you instead of the thing that you already know that you can do. If you're fairly comfortable doing a 5K, you can keep doing 5K. You can keep running at the exact same pace you always have, and that's fine. That's okay. But what about a 10K? If it scares you a little bit, why not sign up for one? Because when you do cross that finish line of that 10K, you realize you just overcame that big scary thing from 6 months ago. Now what else can you do? When you cross one finish line, it's really starting another. And going on and facing a new challenge, you get bolder, you get braver, you become curious about what else can my body do, what else can my brain do. I think that being scared is a good thing. I think that being scared is hugely motivational. I hope more people allow themselves to take on those challenges that scare them more often.
The hardest part of the race isn't getting to the finish line, it's showing up to the start of the race to face all the fears and unknowns and what ifs. Why do you think most runners get nervous before their races, often even more than the elites?
I'm terrified before the start of every race. I'm not going to lie. Even if it's a distance that I've covered before, there's always that moment just before the starting gun goes off where you think, what if? What if I can't do it this time? But then the starting gun goes off and you have no choice but to go, right? You just move. And you cover those miles, you get to the finish line, you do the thing, and you wonder what you were so worried about before. Oh, that wasn't so bad. And we forget that. I think it's really easy to forget that our bodies have the ability to do amazing things. We start to doubt that our mind can't handle this, that our bodies can't handle this, that we can't handle this, and we question everything. And it's easy to get into that spiraling thought pattern. And I don't know how to stop it. I wish I had the secret formula for that. The only thing that I can say is stay there until the starting gun goes off. Because once it goes off and you start moving, all of that falls away. You just keep going until you get to the finish line.
Of all the challenges during that year, which one was the most difficult and why?
That's a really good question. They were all difficult in their own way. Some of them were physically difficult. Running 56 miles for the Comrades Ultramarathon, for example, that was an extreme physical challenge for me. Others were mental, where I let the fear get into my head and I had to go in and overcome the self-talk that was rolling around in my brain. I think probably the biggest challenge, however, was something that really had very little to do with the act of running. And that was going back to the trail that my friend Carlos and I used to run all the time. He passed away from cancer, and I wrote about him in my first book, Life's Too Short to Go So Fucking Slow. And I avoided that trail that we used to run all the time. I was scared. I missed him. And I didn't know that I could handle the grief that would come with that trail. But as part of this year, I was facing my fears and I was doing the things that challenged me. And this was definitely one of them. So I went back to the trail and it was hard. It was really extremely hard. But it also brought me a sense of peace and a sense of closure. And to this day, I'm so glad that I went and I faced that.
After you ran to the top of the Empire State Building, you said that what we get out of a run is often more than a medal or numbers on a watch, about people or opportunities. And those opportunities we would never otherwise have. Explain your thoughts on this. You can tell us about Patrick Wilson if you like.
Let me tell you a story about running up the stairs of the Empire State Building. It's hard. Very hard. You run up 86 flights of stairs. And for me, somebody who has asthma, that's a really hard freaking venture to do. But this time, when I started the race, I actually had my asthma attacks just before the race started. And it's not because of the physical effort, but because I looked to my left and Patrick Wilson, the movie star, was standing right next to me. And let me tell you, he is dreamy. So dreamy. And he started talking to me. And so I got the butterflies in my stomach because holy shit, Patrick Wilson is talking to me. And that brought on a full-on asthma attack. The starting gun went off. Patrick Wilson takes up off the stairs, starts running, and I'm sitting there just going, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to run now. And so I kind of snapped out of it, and I started running up the stairs. And it was hard. Super, super, super hard. But when I got to the top, about 20 minutes later, panting, mind you, maybe dry heaving just a little bit, I walked out onto the observation deck of the Empire State Building. It's 9 o'clock at night. New York City is below me. I have this entire deck all to myself. And I'm thinking, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever done in my life. In what other world would I have the Empire State Building to myself? And then I turn around and there's Patrick Wilson telling me, good job. Now, how did this happen in real life? It does that. Running brought me to this experience. Running brings me to all these cool places, introduces me to all these cool people, and quite frankly, my life would be boring without it. That's the value that running brings to me. It's not about time. It's not about finish or medal. It's about me being able to say, let me tell you a story about the time I ran up the Empire State Building with Patrick freaking Wilson.
Before you went into and across the Grand Canyon on a 24-mile trek, you felt like doing that was something that someone else might do, but you would never do. You didn't think that you were strong enough. What would be your advice for someone who is listening and thinking the same thing? That you are one of those people who does it. They are the ones that's not strong enough.
Prior to this year, I had been to the Grand Canyon before, many times. And I did the thing that everybody does when they go to the Grand Canyon, which is stand on the rim and look at the Grand Canyon. But I heard somewhere, I'm not so aware, that less than 1% of people who visit the Grand Canyon ever go to the bottom. And I thought, you know what? I want to be that. I want to be in the less than 1% of people who know what it's like. So I enlisted the help of my friend Heidi. I said, do you think it would be crazy if we did this thing? And Heidi, being Heidi, said, of course not. When do we go? And so she and I met up and we stood at the rim of the Grand Canyon and said, let's do this thing. Let's run across it. Let's see what it's like down there. It was the coolest experience. It really was. It was hard, obviously. It was very, very physically hard. But at the end, when we had finished running this Grand Canyon, when we could say that we knew what it was like down there, and it's beautiful, by the way, but we stood at the rim of the Grand Canyon and we looked down and it looked smaller. It looked like, well, that wasn't so bad. My advice to people who are in that situation, when they think, okay, well, this could be too hard for most people, that's fine. That's most people. That's not you. You're special. You're tough. You're badass. Find a friend who believes that too and will be willing to take on any challenge. Get after it. Go do it. Because those types of experiences will change you. They really will.
You talked about finding the right training or running partners and how important it is. And for you, that is Heidi. For someone listening who doesn't have anyone near them who seems to be an ideal running partner, what should they do?
I have a lot of great running buddies. Heidi is definitely at the top of that list. We've had a lot of fun together. And I've mentioned before that I met her on Twitter. Twitter is a great place to connect with other runners. You go out there and you post something about, that morning's run, and you have hundreds of thousands of other runners who will shake their pom-poms for you. It's awesome. I love it. Meeting people can be tough, especially in this day and age where we tend to isolate ourselves, right? We tend to look down at our phones and not connect with other people. I think that even though it might be a little bit scary for some people, if you have the opportunity to meet up with other runners in person, do it. Maybe it's somebody that you've talked to on Twitter, or maybe it's just going to your local running club. But get outside of your comfort zone. Go out there, meet new people. Because it may turn out that your new best friend is waiting there. That's what happened with me and Heidi after so many years of talking on Twitter. We were going to be in the same place at the same time, and we just decided, you know what, let's meet up. And now we get together several times a year for crazy running adventures all over the world. And I honestly can't imagine what it would be like if I didn't have her in my life. So take that chance. Go out there, put yourself out there, meet new people. It really is worth it. It's a valuable use of your time.
Susan, thank you so much for answering those questions and for joining us today. I really always love your answers. So how can people get a copy of your new book, Susan? I would love for you to share a little bit more about you and where we can find you. That would be wonderful. And then everyone can go follow you and love you as much as I do. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me on today. If you'd like to read a copy of my book, Running Outside the Comfort Zone, it's available at bookstores, running shops, and online.
Thank you so much to MetPro for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. We have Angelo Poli, founder of MetPro here, who has given up his time to answer our questions. And I'm so thankful for him doing that. These questions have been really helpful. I'm appreciating the feedback you guys are giving on just the questions and the answers that we are going through here. Now, today, Angelo, I thought we would go over, you mentioned in the interview that I had with you, and those listening, you can go back and listen to it. They had a whole episode with Angelo and MetPro a few months ago. I will put links in the show notes for that. But we talked about baseline testing. Now, that confused a few people because it's kind of one of those things you might hear being thrown around. But what exactly does baseline testing mean?
Yeah, great question. So baseline testing is basically just a name that we have given to our process at MetPro, where we help someone parse or measure their real world, their practical metabolic rate. So in other words, answering the question, what do I have to do to either lose weight or gain weight? And what we have found is that everyone's body responds differently. So unfortunately, you can't just use some mathematical equation, because 1,500 calories might merely maintain one person's weight, and I can have someone else who actually loses weight on 3,000 calories. So when we first start to work with someone and get to know someone, fundamental part of that process is to put them on what we call baseline testing or a benchmark meal plan. It is a little bit of work and takes some preparation, but it just lasts a few days. And in that time, what we'll get is data based on how your body responds, good, bad, or in between, to a specific layout of calories, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats split over a predetermined number of meals. And then with that data, we can compare not only how your body responds at a specific intake, but we also have averages from thousands of others who've done the exact same benchmark plan. So we can tell you where you fall kind of on the spectrum of averages. Is your metabolic rate running a little slower today? Is your metabolic rate really fast, or somewhere in between? And then based on that, we'll discuss with you your options and recommendations for what metabolic tools and strategies and game plan we think would best work for you based on your goals.
Great. That's really helpful and kind of explains a lot about what MetPro is. For those of you who want to find out more information, you can go to metpro.co/Tina. Angelo, thank you so much for giving us your time and answering this question today. I know that did confuse a few people, so now we have our answer. So go check out metpro.co/Tina. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. If you've been feeling a bit stuck in a rut or a little disenchanted with your running, or even feel like you're hitting a brick wall with your training, go read Susan's book. It seriously changed my entire outlook. And I'm telling you right now, I am going to do some of those races she mentioned in there. They sound really fun, hard, and totally crazy, but fun. And I need to get out of my comfort zone. I have a feeling you probably do too. You can find links to Susan's book and everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 139. Now, I just want to remind you, if you are listening to this on the day this episode comes out, Friday, the 6th of September, I am doing a live show in New York City tomorrow, September 7th. If you somehow haven't signed up, go to tinamuir.com/NYC. And if you are not going to be able to make it, you will be hearing the episode next Friday. I will be sharing that live show with Meb Keflezgi, Jenny Simpson, and Rachel Patton. You will hear that episode. However, I am recording some bonus episodes while I am in New York. So if you want to get to those, you will have to go support me on Patreon. That's patreon.com/running for real with the number 4. There's also a link to that in the show notes if you want to go find that. So as I mentioned, next week is going to be that live show, and I hope you have a wonderful week, my friends.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.